Len understood people, and he had a remarkable way of reaching out to people. But he understood that in some tough situations, that's not going to cut it. What I learned from Len, I pass on to students here at Northwestern, where I teach international reporting. My name is Ernie Torriero, and I worked with Len Lahman in San Jose for over 10 years. And we were in some pretty hairy situations together, fires, et cetera, et cetera. But I was an LA correspondent for the Mercury News. I had actually come out of LA by then, but was sent back down to cover the aftermath of the Rodney King verdict. Well, I got to the South and realized there was big trouble. I could see a journalist on a payphone, there were no cell phones again, getting beaten. And I tried contacting Len, but it was too late. He was coming in from the north, and he got stuck right behind, a couple of car lanes behind Reginald Denny, who was getting beaten at that time, pulled out of his truck. Len was also, unbeknownst to him, he had driven into this. Somehow, remarkably, Len always had the great sense of knowing how to get out of trouble. And he kept his vehicle moving, and he put his cameras around his neck, and the entire car was getting beaten upon. The windows were broken, and they were ripping cameras from his neck. I couldn't do much to help him and realized I had to get out of there, otherwise a similar fate was going to happen to me. And somehow the crowd parted, or they went on to something else, and Len managed to drive his way out of there. He was pretty shaken up, obviously, but he drove his vehicle to the LA Times parking lot. And I rendezvoused with him, and I'll never forget it. I've been all over the world, in Afghanistan and Baghdad and all kinds of places. This car looked like it had been bombed. But over the next 3 days, Len and I got into a bunch of hairy situations. Joining us at the LA Times parking lot shortly thereafter was the then young San Jose photographer, Lloyd Francis. Somehow we decided to drive in one car, and Lloyd, Len, and I go speeding down a downtown street, and we stopped into a J.J. Newberry's, which was getting looted. And Len and Lloyd go running in, and I go running in after them, and I slipped on a bunch of paper bags that were on the floor. And Len picked me up and pushed me through the window to get me out of there. There was a lot of stuff. We were shot at by Korean owners. We drove out of situations on the side of overpasses. And Len was always a steady, steady hand in those kind of situations. And I learned one thing from him, to keep moving. If he didn't keep moving in that situation on Florence and Normandy, I don't know what would have happened to us. It was funny. A couple of days after the riots, we were on a street corner, and it looked like more riots were going to happen. And there was a fairly loud group of people coming toward us, and we were braced for trouble. But those sounds we heard were people singing. They were Christians coming down the street going to a church service, and they sang an old gospel hymn, which we sort of laughed about even years later when I last met Len. It was, "They can take everything I got, but they can't take my soul." Len's legacy will live through his pictures. That's something nobody can ever, ever take away from us.